The avoidance of pork by Muslims is one of the most well-known aspects of Islamic dietary law. While it is primarily rooted in religious doctrine, the practice carries layers of cultural, historical, and even political significance, especially among Arabs, Iranians, and Turks. The most direct reason Muslims do not eat pork is rooted in religion. Islam strictly prohibits the consumption of swine, and this command is repeated multiple times in the Quran. The Quran clearly states that the flesh of swine is impure and forbidden. Muslims believe the Quran to be the literal word of God, and avoiding pork is seen as a direct act of obedience to divine will. The prohibition of pork is not conditional or symbolic. It is categorical and unambiguous. It is part of a larger system of dietary laws that distinguish between what is halal, which means permissible, and haram, which means forbidden, reinforcing the Islamic emphasis on physical and spiritual purity. While the Quranic prohibition is central, avoiding pork has also become a cultural marker of Muslim identity. Throughout history, Muslims lived among various other religious and ethnic groups, many of whom consumed pork regularly. In such mixed societies, abstaining from pork became a clear way to signal religious adherence and social separation. For many Muslims, especially in Arab lands where Islam first emerged, dietary restrictions helped define the boundaries of a new moral community. Not eating pork was not only about religious law, but about belonging. The rejection of pork became a visible everyday practice that set Muslims apart from non-Muslims. Over time, this distinction took on cultural, emotional, and even political significance far beyond its original theological context. The pig holds a uniquely negative place in Muslim-majority cultures. Beyond the Quranic command, pigs are often viewed as symbols of filth, gluttony, and moral corruption, like in some Western countries. In Arabic, Persian, and Turkish languages, comparing someone to a pig is considered a deep insult. These associations are not based on modern scientific evaluations of pork, but on centuries of moral and cultural tradition. In many Muslim homes, the idea of even touching pork, let alone eating it, is repulsive. This cultural aversion strengthens the religious prohibition and embeds it deeper into everyday life. As a result, the idea of consuming pork is not simply a dietary matter. It is intertwined with notions of cleanliness, honor, and moral discipline. In the early days of Islam, the Arabian Peninsula was a region of diverse practices and tribal customs. While pork may not have been a staple in pre-Islamic Arabia, due to the desert environment being unsuitable for pig farming, there was no clear prohibition against it before the Quran. With the rise of Islam in the 7th century, a new social order emerged, centered on the principles of monotheism, moral discipline, and communal unity. The Quranic dietary laws, including the ban on pork, were integral to this system. As Islam spread beyond the Arabian Peninsula, the religious law quickly became a cultural norm among Arab societies. Avoiding pork became second nature, passed down through generations, reinforced by religious education and daily practice. The Turks present a particularly interesting case because their avoidance of pork predates their conversion to Islam. Early Turkic peoples in Central Asia were predominantly nomadic, practicing animal husbandry with herds of horses, sheep, goats, and cattle. The nomadic lifestyle did not support pig farming. Pigs require settled agriculture, access to grains, and are unsuited to constant movement. As a result, pork was virtually absent from the traditional Turkic diet, and pigs were rarely, if ever, domesticated by them. This practical reality shaped a cultural aversion to pigs long before religious considerations came into play. When the Turks began converting to Islam between the 9th and 11th centuries, the Islamic prohibition on pork aligned naturally with their existing customs. Rather than requiring a major cultural shift, the Quranic ban simply reinforced what was already standard practice. As the Seljuks and later the Ottomans established powerful Islamic empires, pork avoidance became codified into Islamic law and imperial policy. Within the Ottoman Empire, Muslims were legally forbidden to sell or consume pork, although non-Muslim subjects such as Christians and Jews were allowed to do so under separate legal arrangements. Even after the fall of the Ottoman Empire and the rise of the secular Turkish Republic in the early 20th century, pork remained largely absent from Turkish cuisine. Although secularism weakened the direct role of religion in state affairs, cultural memory persisted. To this day, pork consumption in Turkey is rare, and many Turks, religious or not, still avoid it as part of a shared cultural identity. It remains a quiet but strong marker of Muslim Turkishness. In Iran, the story is shaped by both religious and political transformations. Before the arrival of Islam, ancient Persians practiced Zoroastrianism, a religion that emphasized purity and ritual cleanliness. While Zoroastrianism did not impose an absolute ban on pork, pigs were viewed as undesirable and unclean animals. This cultural backdrop made it easier for Islamic dietary laws to take root after the Arab-Muslim conquest of Persia in the 7th century. Over time, Iran became a major center of Islamic scholarship, especially within the Shia tradition. The prohibition of pork was absorbed fully into the religious and legal framework of Persian Islamic society. Following the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the Islamic Republic of Iran began to actively reinforce Islamic law in public and private life. Avoiding pork became not only a religious practice but also a political symbol. The new regime promoted Islamic values in contrast to what it viewed as Western moral decay. Pork, often associated with Western diets, came to represent cultural imperialism and foreign corruption. Thus, in modern Iran, not eating pork is not just about theology, it's about maintaining cultural sovereignty and resisting external influence. In the colonial era, pork also became a symbol of foreign domination. European powers often brought their food cultures into Muslim territories, sometimes with open disregard for local norms. In French-ruled North Africa, colonial officials introduced pork products into local markets, schools, and prisons. In some cases, pork was even served to Muslim soldiers and detainees without their consent. These actions fueled resentment and made pork a symbol of cultural violation. In modern conflict zones like Iraq or Afghanistan, reports of pork being served in U.S. military facilities or to detainees have provoked outrage. In these settings, pork is more than just food. It becomes a tool of humiliation, a marker of foreign intrusion, and a trigger for collective resistance. The memory of such episodes reinforces Muslim communities' deep attachment to avoiding pork not just as a religious duty, but as an act of cultural and political defiance. In today's globalized world, Muslims from Arab, Iranian, and Turkish backgrounds live in increasingly multicultural societies. Whether in Europe, North America, or East Asia, they often find themselves navigating food environments where pork is common. This has led to the widespread development of halal certification systems, halal restaurants, and dedicated food markets. For many Muslims living abroad, the act of avoiding pork has become a daily exercise in cultural preservation and personal faith. It is not just about law, it's about identity in a world of shifting values. The Muslim prohibition against pork is more than a dietary rule. It is a profound expression of faith, identity, history, and resistance. Among Arabs, Iranians, and Turks, this single act of refusal ties together diverse cultural legacies with a shared spiritual commitment to Islam. From Quranic law to nomadic customs, from ancient Persia to modern geopolitics, the rejection of pork continues to unite and define Muslim communities across the globe. It is a quiet but powerful tradition, one bite at a time.